One of these days we're going to come in.
Yeah. Well, I had like the lighting in my office at one point. It's been down for about a year, where it was right by my speakers, and so it had the little mods in there. It would go to the beat of the song and stuff. And so you would come in, it would like slow down, then pause, and then I could like turn it off so there'd be some other activity. But
got a nice little disco.
I don't live in a discotheque, people. I don't. So yeah.
Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to the latest episode of the Project Failure Files, a series for anyone who manages people, projects, processes for a living. I'm Sharon Weaver, CEO of Smarter Consulting.
And I am Christian Buckley, the founder of Collab Talk. And welcome to another episode of our series where Sharon and I, every Monday morning at the same time, we're here exploring various project and program and product management topics from the perspective of what not to do as you manage those projects. In each episode, we talk about the common pitfalls, we share personal stories and experiences, and explore strategies and best practices to help you to be successful in your role.
And in this episode, we're going to talk about not making yourself visible and the gigantic impact that can have on your role or career, the negative impact it can have on your role.
Yes. So I've had this. So personal experience, I'll share stories, but this is for people who make that career mistake of hiding in plain sight. And no, they're not ninjas. So I made this mistake thinking that if I just put my head down, I'm just part of that, that get stuff done, or my team, like we just were crushing it. But I tried to avoid all of the politics and all of the noise that was happening around the department, around the company. Like, I don't care about any of this. I would try to create that world. In fact, I think I've shared this before. After I left a former company, was meeting with one of my direct reports who was moved to her first time managing a team as a frontline manager. And she said, I didn't realize how much you shielded from us. And I'm like, that was a great compliment. I was like, yeah, you're welcome. Like, she's like, yeah, she's like, I don't know. I like any of that part of it. I'm like, I know.
Yeah. We talk about in the entertainment world, people talk about being discovered. And I promise you, you are not going to be discovered singing in your shower, singing in your car, hiding at your desk. There is no discovering happening. And the problem with making yourself invisible or limiting that visibility in the wrong way is that your manager's manager, my husband calls him your grand boss. He's like my grand boss. And, any other leadership team that's really kind of scouting to say, ooh, who on the team do I think would make, good opportunities in other roles or whatever, they're not going to see you. They're not going to see your value. They're not going to get you. They're not going to understand you. And I understand that, maybe this role isn't like you're not modeling or acting or singing, but you do get discovered, right? Even in the corporate layer, you're going to get discovered, and no discovering is happening is if you're hiding yourself off in a cubicle somewhere and don't let anybody see your value.
Right. There has to be a balance, obviously. You can't just be like, look what I've done. It makes me think of Stewart on the old Mad TV. Look what I can do. But there needs to be a balance. So I actually have a tag on my blog called blatant self-promotion that I use for content. So you can go filter the search on that. And I jokingly added that so that I could, ring my own bell, like, hey, look what I went and did here, and share accomplishments in a sort of a self-deprecating way. And I laugh about it, but I'm really trying to get the details out there without coming across as that, hey, look at me, I'm doing stuff, which is kind of criticized. So like, where's the balance in you need to be more visible, and especially your compliments out there without sounding like these people that are full of themselves and talking about all the things that they did.
Yeah, I mean, this is the monologue at the end of the Barbie movie, right? Everything that stands for is this idea of there is a wrong way to do it too. And, we all know those people. You know who I'm talking about. They're the people that are like, oh, name drop, name drop, name drop. Let me tell you about all the amazing things that I did. And, that's all they talk about all the time is, did you know that I'm the best in this and this and this and this? And I'm the only person who's capable of even possibly doing anything. We know who those people are. There is a balance for self-promotion, and there's a nuance, there's a subtle way of doing the good things, sharing and celebrating the wins and sharing the good things that you've done. And then, being able to let people know that you're doing that. And even if you are really happy in your role, even if this is what you want to do for the rest of your life, so you're like, well, I'm not out there trying to find a new job. I'm not out there trying to get promoted. I do still think that there's things that you need to consider about being visible in what you're doing.
I think structurally, yes, there are healthy habits you can develop. We're going to get into some of those. There's something that I do. Again, I'll give kind of the history of that. But this is a great discussion. I know it's difficult for a lot of people to highlight. Again, like I'm just getting my work done. The problem is, you get into a difficult economic climate. The company's looking for cuts. And this is one of those, the squeaky wheel gets the grease. It's to some degree, you have to be visible so that they know, oh, no. Sharon provides tremendous value. I know exactly what she's doing. It's funny. It's in the news now. I mean, there's a lot of angst around like the whole Doge and Elon Musk, the email out to the government, like give us 5 bullets of like what you accomplished in the last week. But seriously, folks, like in these roles, like I've done that my entire career. I get asked that. We get asked that all the time. You have to think that way to know, am I delivering value to my team, to the business? If you can't answer that.
Yeah. If somebody sent you that email, what would you say? And I do think it's really important to think about, who are you? What is your role? And what value are you delivering? And sometimes, well, I still show up every day is not enough value to say that you're, doing the thing that you need to be doing. And I think it's an important thing to think about every single day. What value do I provide?
Yep. That should be, well, again, built in. It should be healthy habits, part of the structure where you look at, I mean, again, this is a very kind of, anal retentive way of kind of looking at the world, but you have your, the annual goals for the team, for the organization, for yourself. You have that broken down into quarters. It's almost it's easier if you work with, if one of your key stakeholder groups, or you work in a sales organization that's already focused very much this way. But project managers, sales folks are like this. They're probably the most comfortable. What am I like? Annual numbers, my quarterly numbers, my monthly numbers, then break it down. What do I need to do in the next 4 weeks to achieve the monthly numbers? What do I need to be doing each day to achieve the daily things? And so it's just a system, a processed view of the world there, which is important. So great discussion that we're going to have around this. Of course, as with every episode, please feel free to comment throughout the episode, share your experiences. We will respond as soon as we wrap up. Like we will answer your questions. So ask questions through, you can, as we're live streaming out on X and in Facebook, but we get most of the comments through YouTube and LinkedIn. We do go and answer those things. And we also have the newsletter that's out there. If you've not already signed up, go to projectfailurefiles.com and you can contact us, ask questions, make suggestions that are there as well. But sign up for the newsletter. It's probably the most important thing on that list. But yeah, it's so this should be a good discussion.
Yeah, let's get started.
Well, it's the why, Sharon, is good performance not enough?
Yeah. And I mean, this is exactly what I was saying is, you can be the absolute most amazing employee. You can be the most amazing resource or individual contributor. But the problem is that, first of all, there's a level of satisfaction where you're getting paid to be there, right? This is a job. You are getting paid. It's transactional. And often sometimes people think, well, I show up and I'm amazing and everybody should really just, be excited about all the amazing things that I do. But truthfully, a lot of times, like, they're like, okay, you showed up, you did your job, check. And this is a very debatable topic. And I know we have the microphone, so we get to talk about it right now. But it's a really debatable topic on, well, do you care about your employees? Do you care about your coworkers? Do you care about your subordinates? And I truthfully think most people do. But the reason why good performance isn't enough is because what is good performance versus great performance, and how do people even view that?
I've got a good parallel for this. Years ago, I wrote an article. So I do a lot of marketing, content strategy, digital marketing stuff. There's a bunch of things that I consult on and have my. While I've been in tech my entire career and largely on the PM product side of things, I have a marketing degree. But one of the things I wrote this article a few years back. It's out on LinkedIn. It's called above the line marketing. But the concept is the same here. So you're talking about, like, why can't I just do my job? Here's the expectations. I expect you to be at that baseline. You want to stand out. It's what you're doing above the baseline, above the line. So like in marketing, like I would work with clients that said, well, we've got a blog, we've got our website, we're doing a newsletter once a month, we're going to conferences. I said, and every one of your competitors is doing all the exact same things.
Solid C+ work, guys. Solid right. C+ work.
It's when you fall behind, aren't doing those basics, you might get, that's the wrong kind of visibility that you want. So we often, if you're just doing your job at that even keel, you're doing what you're supposed to be doing. The problem is that's where you become invisible. You fall below that, you become more visible. How do you then go above and beyond? How do you get those things more visible so that the perception is that you're a hard worker and somebody that we can't do without. You're not replaceable.
So what you're saying is stand out of the crowd in a good way.
Right. In a not, like the, hey, look at me way. Correct.
Yeah. No, I agree. I do think that being invisible keeps people from realizing the good things that you offer. But you do have to remember that, like you said, there's a baseline. There's, when you show up, like, there is a baseline of this is already expected. And so you do become invisible because you're just part of the crowd. I mean, you're just part of the day-to-day operations. And for you to go above that, for people to notice, for people to appreciate, for people to value, you have to be doing something above the baseline that is worth valuing for people to see that.
Right. If you're invisible, how it affects your career advancement. It means that there's a promotion, there's a leadership opportunity. They're not going to consider you for that. If there's something that's high visibility, again, they're going to go with what they know. They're aware that this other person is doing fantastic, and you might be crushing it on a much more difficult and complex project. And sometimes, look, there are good managers out there that are well aware of that. But I'll tell you, in most fast growing organizations, like, they don't have the bandwidth to be doing that kind of in depth. There's other factors, like one of the most common, and we just talked about this in the last episode too, is that there's, they have too many direct reports. And so they're not able to have that in depth into everybody and their career goals and what they're passionate about and what they're really the best at. They just know whether you are performing, underperforming, or if you're taking other steps, some of the things that we're going to get into. If you're an overachiever those would be the ones that they look at for those. And there's another problem with being invisible is that then if you're not getting those opportunities, that lack of recognition, you can become disengaged. You can become angry. You can stagnate in that role, never get new opportunities where you're learning and growing. So it's kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy of, like, I'm not getting the insights. Well, or I'm not getting more opportunities leads to not getting more opportunities and learning and growing.
Well, yeah, if you're feeling underappreciated at work, if you're feeling resentful because nobody notices what you do, it's a high possibility that they don't even know what you do. And maybe you need to be really clear about meeting with your manager or your leadership team and saying, hey, I'm feeling frustrated that you guys don't see what I'm doing here. do you even know what I do? And I don't think that's bragging. I think that's communicating and being visible.
Yeah. You just have to, again, that balance of self-advocacy, and being humble in that role of what you can and can't do. Like, it's not bragging. You're not out there. It's like, again, it's not the, hey, look at me. But it's like when you haven't, we're just going to get right into this. We're going to talk about this. One of the first things that you can do is, sharing your wins without being boastful. So it's factual. It's that, okay, completed this project. Like if you're doing a one-on-one, however frequently you're doing that with your manager, and you're going in there, lead off with like, here's what went right. Here's the wins. Here's what was completed. Here's what's finished. I had this, and it could be the personal, the team, the career-wise, all of that. You start with that and then say, all right, and then here's where we are, the status. Because the number one mistake that's made in reporting it on those is to go in and just give a status report of the projects without specifically calling out like the wins. Like you just failed in how you're providing, like, here's what I've done, here's where I am.
Or worse yet, wait for your manager to bring it up. Because if you show up to a one-on-one and your manager has to prod and poke you to find out, okay, so what's going on? Nothing. What have you done? My job.
Yeah.
Like, you want to know project failure files? Like, here's the biggest failure you can do. Show up to a one-on-one and be like, I'm here. Can I leave now? Can I stop answering questions? Your manager should not have to poke and prod you to find out what's going on. You should show up and be prepared. And you should say, here are the wins that I've had since the last time we talked. Maybe you didn't see them, but I sure would like to call them out for you.
Yeah. During business school, somebody had shared with this template, and I've used it throughout my career. It's been fantastic. It's a single slide update that has the 4 quadrants. And so has the first window. Again, you can set it up. There's different versions of the templates, but the first window is like, here's what was accomplished, what was done. It's the wins. It's intentionally like, first, here's the good news. Like, this is where we are on this. And then the second one is like, all right, here's where are we in the plan. Here's what's next and things. The third quadrant is here's what went wrong, what we're doing. Here's potential risks. Here's our mitigation path. So summarized, you get into the detail around each one of those. And the last one is like, here's the asks. Here's what I need you to help. Here's what I'm doing next. I've got vacation coming up. There's this risk. I need you to do this. I need you to write, my manager, I need you to write this email and do this to get me unstuck in this one, kind of whatever it is. They know, positive. Here's the win. Here's the status. Here's the negative. Here's what are you asking me, your manager, to do to help you? So it can be a 15-minute conversation, and then you spend the bulk of the rest of the time like digging into the details, the weeds on any, like the mitigation strategy, whatever those things are.
Also, if you don't have any blockers, that's also another red flag. If you never have any blockers, then it's like pushing hard enough.
Right. Well, that's another part of the conversation. And it may be that you've identified, like, I've got the bandwidth to take on more and do more. And so that could be part of it. So that you may not have any blockers on the existing project, but what's the ask is that I've got more bandwidth. Like I can take on more work here. And like, yeah, we got mitigation, but we got the plans and stuff. I'm good. I could take on another parallel project. So yeah, your self-promotion is not arrogance. You have to be clinical in it. You have it structured, framing that discussion. So you're sharing progress, you're sharing insights into that. It allows you to be clear on what you need from them. You can, again, in that discussion say, look, and I'm weak in this area. I could use more coaching, mentoring in this. Who could you recommend? Who of your peers, my manager, who of your peers should I go and shadow? What else can I do there? That's another way to, again, be inward looking, but also showing that your willingness to continue learning, to grow, is to get their help, their input on what else should I be learning? What else could I be doing here? What do you see missing from all of this? And a good manager will then ask those questions and provide those learning opportunities. So yeah, showcasing. I mean, Sharon, how do you showcase like you're the CEO, but you have, coaching and mentoring relationships, and you have clients that you report back to.
Mm-hmm.
How do you showcase achievements without coming across as egotistical?
And this has taken me a long time and a lot of growth and a lot of personal development, because when I first started doing this, it was very hard for me. But first of all, I have somebody else who helps me so that I'm not having to make all those decisions all the time. But, I do have things that I post on social media to let people know, hey, I achieved this, or I did this, or I accomplished this. Internally, we use anything from like Viva Engage, which used to be Yammer, to like post different things that are happening. We might share it in a chat, like a group chat, and say, hey, wanted to share that we had this big win. And, individuals, I really encourage other individuals to share their wins too, so that we can all celebrate together. But I think, part of it is putting on your profile, your social media profiles. Part of it's sharing it on your blog. Part of it's sharing it out, maybe in an email or a newsletter. And then also just telling people sometimes. I'm like, hey, this was a really big deal and I'm really excited about it. And, most of the time, other people are always looking for an opportunity to support you and cheer you on. So not only am I sharing that out, but I'm creating an opportunity for then other people to be able to continue to network with me in a positive way.
Well, and I know I talk about it all the time. Sharon and I also run a cohort for people that are interested in becoming Microsoft MVPs. And so we have a monthly call that's free and open. If you're interested in that, reach out to Sharon and I. We'd be happy to invite you into this. One of the things that I share that I started where I was internally as the chief evangelist for a software company. I was kind of the face of the company, of the products out there in industry, speaking at conferences. I started to do a little internal weekly newsletter of, hey, here's what your evangelist is out doing. Here's articles I've written. Here's a campaign that I put together that we're going to do marketing around. Here are other assets. I then extended that, and I started tagging all of those items in our CRM platform. So if sales or support was having a conversation with the customer, like, what content do we have around this topic, this problem area? They'd find the articles, they'd share it and do some things. That evolved into on my blog, which, as you know, Sharon, I've been blogging since February of 2004. So my blog is over 21 years old now. But I started a few years back. I don't remember how long ago it's been, maybe close to a decade, doing monthly blog posts where I outline every conference, every talk, every article, every podcast, every interview, all of it. And it can be overwhelming for some people to look at. Again, I'm not like, hey, look at all the volume I've done. No, it's a way for me to collect. So it's easy when my manager would say, what have you been doing? Cut and paste. Here's what I've done. Here's where it's involved. And it's just putting it out there. But it's a structural way. One, it's an extension of my own brain to capture everything. A month is a long time, especially post-pandemic. Goes by. There's things I'm like, when was that? And like, Christian, it was in January. It was 2 months ago. Oh, okay. But it catalogs all those things. But it also then gets people where they know, like, this is what Christian's doing. In addition to the project, the other thing, like, here's the output from that. So there, you can find a way to deliver that content. That, again, it's not this egotistical thing. It's like, look, here's the things, here's the accomplishments, here's where it is. It's in a centralized place. It's on my blog. It can be out on your intranet where you're like, look at all of our one-on-ones. Here's my 4-up plan. Here's the single pages, which goes through each one of them. So you can go back and look at the progress. I love that as a manager, when I'm getting ready for mid-year or end-of-year reviews, if I had that documentation, that paperwork trail, that the person that in all our conversations, I've got my notes, but I also have their inward looking around the plan, around the work that they're doing, and or whether I had asked them to and they weren't providing those on a regular basis. That's also an indicator.
Yeah. And I think, in today's society, and as we're talking about how cultural changes are happening, A lot of this generation feels really comfortable sharing out their dinner or their hobbies on social
Here's
media.
what my cat is doing.
Yeah, I mean, people share all kinds of stuff. Sometimes they share more than I think they should share out on social media. But you see that, and it's like they're comfortable sharing about their passions and their hobbies and their meals and their pets. You need to feel that same way at work about sharing out. These are the things I'm working on. These are the things I'm accomplishing. This is the stuff I did today. I think if we can get in that same cadence of sharing that information out at work, you're gonna have the same, feeling that you get when you do share that out on social media.
There is value to building a personal brand within your organization. Again, you don't have to be, as I was an evangelist, that was part of my job, was to be working out loud and sharing and doing all those things. It's a whole nother discussion around, sharing versus not sharing. Like the era of, we've both been in, working for 30 plus years. Like it used to be like power was hoarding of knowledge of data. People like felt like this is who I am. Like you have to come through me to get this data. It's like now, no, it's like share all that. It's everything is open source in your company. Share that out there. I feel that this is the same way. We need to be more open. It helps build perceptions. But I've had at different companies that I've worked for where management has said, hey, on this topic, you need to go talk to Christian, see what Christian does in this area. And like, that's like the extreme. Like you don't have to do the level. Again, I write a lot of content. I create a lot of content, as we all know, that it's hard to sustain that, but follow kind of the best practices from that. But you can kind of define, like, what do you want to be known for, and highlight the things that are your strengths. I often bring up that one of my favorite business books of all time is First Break All the Rules by Marcus Buckingham. And a big part of that, it's part of my management strategy, is identifying and managing to people's strengths, not picking apart their weaknesses. But I would try to, as a manager, knowing their strengths and weaknesses, give them the things where I could leverage their strengths where they would exceed every time because it leveraged their strengths and not highlight their weaknesses. And I would structure project teams based on those strengths. And that's something that you can kind of do for yourself through this communication of, here's what I'm good at, here's what my wins are, and be able to demonstrate your consistency in how you communicate, your work ethic, your leadership style, kind of all those things, and make yourself kind of the go-to person for those areas.
I think that's incredibly important. When we talk about failures, early on in my career, I did a lot of web development. Was a brand new thing. So I learned a lot about web development. And one of the things that I did very early on was Flash. So I did a lot of Flash programming, and it was mostly because it was new and a lot of people needed it. And so I jumped into it, and I really figured out that I really didn't enjoy programming it. I really didn't enjoy it. It just wasn't my favorite thing to do. But I was just getting call after call after call after call to do Flash contracts. And finally, there was a moment where I literally took it off of everything. I took all of my portfolio stuff down. I took Flash off my resume. I took it off my LinkedIn profile because I didn't want to do that work. And it didn't matter that I was good at it. It didn't matter that people needed it. There was an opportunity for it, but I didn't want to do it. So I think it's really incredibly important to say, you need to tell people what you want to do and promote the things that you're good at in the area that you want more work in it, because the reward for a job well done is more work. So make sure that people know about the areas that you want to do and not the areas that you don't want more work in as well.
Right. Isn't it funny? We'll come back to again, what is the biggest barrier to our own growth and progression? Ourselves, our self-edit. And so, it's difficult. I mean, it's hard to recognize what are those moments of visibility. When should I do things? And from a tactical perspective, it's, you need to take advantage of those one-on-ones, the quarterly reviews, the mid-year, the end of year, whatever retrospectives are around that, whatever opportunities that you have with your project teams, with your stakeholders, to go back and say, look, here's what we've accomplished. Here's what we've done. This was good. This is what we've learned. like both of us love the postmortem because it's from a project standpoint. It's a great way to go through and say, but even in a postmortem, what's the habit, the bad habit? We focus on all the things that went wrong. You have to focus more time on what went right, what you learned from that, and not just go down that well of the negative of what went wrong. You want to learn from it. You want to build that. But just like if you do a SWOT analysis, when you learn what that is, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats, every weakness is an opportunity. So one of the skills of doing a SWOT analysis is saying, here's where we're weak. What can we do to make this as an opportunity to improve, to optimize, to grow, so that we're learning from this? You do the same SWOT analysis of the same project, 6 months later, it's going to look different because you've implemented some of those things. Some of those opportunities now turned into strengths because of that. And you just need to do that with your own life. I know that we're, Sharon, as this is like a rare thing, Sharon has to run to a customer call here shortly. But so I would say that Sharon could always, as we're doing this, like you could always like drop off here and I can wrap up some final thoughts. But any other
right.
final words on risks of staying invisible from your view?
Yeah. I mean, I just want to share, my history is that for a long time, I was a heads down individual contributor. I loved what I did. I loved working hard. There were people who kind of appreciated some of the things I did. But like I said, I had to learn early on how to highlight the things that I wanted more of and take away the things that I really didn't want to do. And the only way that people knew what to give me more opportunities in and the ways that they could help me was when I told them what I wanted. So I think if I was to leave you with any really good words of wisdom, it's be visible around the things that you want to do more of. And don't forget to promote yourself just a little bit and have your own brand. But yes.
You're dropping off. I'll see it. I'll wrap it up here and we'll see you
great.
next week for the next one. But yeah, great words of advice there. But just to wrap up here, it's like, oh, my face is too big on screen here. Like that's too much. But anyway, the risks of staying invisible. There are career consequences to that. So we've talked about, it can impact your, that lack of visibility, long-term career growth. Colleagues who have similar or less experience, they can get promoted ahead of you. You can have valuable contributions. They overlook things that should be highlighted, like that you've done really well. And then from all of that, if you're overlooked, then it's natural that you'll be less motivated. You might be resentful of that. You might then start disengaging from the organization. So it is a fine line between being overlooked and being overexposed. And so you want to avoid that trap of that constant self-promotion. That's why, like, structurally, I find like I use that that tag in the content on my blog. And I can go over the top listing all the things that I've accomplished during the month, everywhere I've been, all the output there. But for the manager, it's just like, hey, if you want to look, here's the summary, here's my blog post where I outline this, or where I've categorized this out on the intranet, where I've captured all this. So anytime you want to look at it, this is how I'm doing my month-to-month capturing of everything that I've done. Again, I've had managers that have said, I love the fact that you've done this because I can literally cut and paste. Here's what Christian's been doing. And so doesn't sound like you're advocating for yourself. It's just a clinical approach. It's a matter of fact. Here's what was done, and here are the results of that. So long-term strategy for this is just to be consistent. Have that natural visibility by communicating your wins. Make it part of your one-on-ones. Get feedback. Have mentors. Talk to them about, maybe there are standards of the way that they use it, or organizationally, there are standard ways of sharing that feedback. To look at somebody, ask the manager, like, who's really visible, from the peer group or from other, similar roles. Go have conversations, network them, and say, how are you doing it? What are you doing? Like, how could I change what I'm doing? Maybe there are outside observations, like you're too quiet, you never ask questions. things like that. Ask questions, you'll get answers. And then you start developing relationships inside the company with people. Know that, hey, I'm working on myself. I'm trying to improve how I communicate and showcase the wins for myself, for my projects, for my teams. And so they'll be more aware of that and give you more feedback. And I think the underlying thing here, which Sharon and I both talked about, one of the best things that you can do is just to be more plugged in and knowledge sharing focused inside your organization. That is one of the surefire ways to become more visible is sharing what you're learning. Setting up a lunch and learn on Fridays. Like, here's what I've been building. Here's what we're doing with the project. Anybody wants to come along and view this, invite a broader set of folks to those, have it, online, and share internally with the various stakeholders. Hey, here's where we are. This is like our monthly update on this project XYZ. Here's where we are. Here's what's working. Here's the risks. So it's not just with your managers, but to give the broader organization, people that have a small role to play within that broader project, but more visibility. And being known for providing that kind of visibility is a great way to get more visibility. So to kind of wrap up, great work doesn't speak for itself. You need to ensure that decision makers see and understand your contributions. So when you're doing it strategically, self-promotion, it's about, here's where I'm adding value. Here are the results of the things that I'm doing. Here's how I'm adding value. If you're not sure how to word that, using like AI, ChatGPT to go in and say, here's the output, here's what I'm doing. How could I share this with my manager in a way that is not about self-promotion, but more about showing that I'm adding value, and reword those statements? It's a great way to utilize the free AI tools that are out there. So kind of a call to action for this episode: reflect on how visible that you are within your organization. Don't trust your own thoughts on how visible you are. Ask people whether there are areas that you can improve the visibility of the things that you're doing, and then build out a plan. Have 3 to 5 steps that are proactive things that you can do to change, to make more actionable the steps towards this process. Again, ask people, get feedback, see what others are doing, mirror that activity, so that it becomes part of your daily habits to capture, share that information out. The more organic, the more natural it is, the more authentic and aligned it will be with the company's goals and culture and kind of all those things. So career growth, ultimately, it's not just about the talent. It's not about luck. It's making sure that the things that you're doing are recognized and then leveraged effectively. So it's Sharon and I both take a framework approach to all these things. There's a structured way to have it. When I do one-on-ones, when I work with managers, like, I've got structures for each of these different things. Again, if you're looking for coaching and any of this kind of stuff, career coaching, Sharon and I both do that. We do paid coaching. So if you're interested, reach out and talk to us. Of course, you can go and pull it up here again. You can ask that question for help specifically out on the website, but go to projectfailures.files.com, sign up for the newsletter as well there. And as always, we will be back next week with another topic. Oh, I just shut it down. Like, I should start saying in the video, like, what the next topic will be. But anyway, don't have that queued ready to go. But we'll see you next Monday, always at 9 a.m. Pacific, every Monday, the next episode. Of course, I'll have the blog post up with a summary for today's episode, and I'll mention next week's topic as well, always in the blog. Go to buckleyplanet.com. You can find that information there. If you just go search on Project Failure Files, you'll find Sharon and I all over the place. So see you there. Talk to you soon. And if I can find the outro, there it is. All right. Talk to you soon.